Life is for living, and at First International Bank and Trust, we're all about living, helping your dreams come true. Because we're not just in the banking business. We're in the first home business, the community sponsorship business, the how do I make this happen business, making your banking life easy so you can focus on what matters most. First International Bank and Trust. Live first.
Coming to you from the Bonfire Studios North, it's another episode of Tauros Weekly. I'm your host, Peter Theodos. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Ken Oda. And Ken, we got another Tauros alum, and we also failed to come up with a catchy name for this part of the show, bringing back the alum. But it is Tauros 10, so.
It is, and I'm excited to catch up with this guy, Tyler Shipstad. He was here my second year, year 3 of the Tauros, and
I was not here.
You were not here yet, but I'm excited to catch up with him and hear what he's been up to. And let's cut right to it. Let's bring Tyler in.
Tyler, welcome to Tauros Weekly.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be on. Ken, always good to see you again.
Love getting a chance to catch up with some of these guys who were here, in the early times. Tyler, let's kick it right off. What do you remember most about your time here in Minot?
Man, for me, well, the first thing that comes to mind is the winter, but I've tried to push that out of my mind. No, I love the town. I had a great time in Minot, and obviously the billets, the fans, my teammates from that time. I still keep up with a lot of those guys, so it's those memories last forever, and it was a great group for sure.
What before we dive more into your Tauros career, what have you been doing since you left Minot? Let's update fans on that.
Yeah, so right after playing in Minot, I committed to UW Stout, played D3 NCAA there for I'd say like a year. It was a year and 3 games, but had a few bad concussion issues and stuff like that. So kind of transitioned my game. I transferred back to Colorado State, finished my undergrad there in supply chain management. And it was kind of a blessing there because I actually got into coaching right away in Fort Collins, Colorado, where CSU is. And so, yeah, that led me into my career now. So I'm the vice president at the Colorado Rampage. It's a club hockey organization in Colorado. There's only 4 AAA teams in the state, and we're one of them. And so I'd run that, and we also have a hockey academy here that's kind of all like hybrid training, and the kids get access to online schooling and stuff like that. So really for those kids who eat, sleep, and breathe hockey, I mean, they pretty much live here at the rink. And, we've got staff and tutors and stuff for their on ice. So it's been an awesome change. I obviously miss playing the game, but now I get to pop out and watch these guys and hopefully help them play a little longer than I did and play a little better than I did for sure. If anybody remembers the way I played, I just kind of it goes 0 to 10. I got to probably go at 110 miles an hour, but not too skilled. So, so now I'm fixing kids now and was a good student of the game. So it's been an awesome career, and I'm just blessed to still be in the game.
You had ties to that organization before you joined it as a coach, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually where I played U18, and that's where I ended up tendering to go to the North American League. My first year was in Fresno, and that was the last year they were around. So when Fresno had folded after my first season, I was kind of a free agent and looking around, and that's where I ended up getting connected with Minot. So
I had misremembered. Going back, I thought you were part of the trade that brought David Dahlbeck here, as he's also a former Fresno Monster. What went into the decision for you to come to Minot as a free agent as opposed to going to one of the other programs in the league?
Yeah, I really, that was when Marty was there, and just talking with him and listening to people that knew him, and definitely here at the Rampage program, Coach Sherman, who was my coach, he knows just about everybody, and really connected me and said Marty was an amazing guy to be with, and it'd be a great program. So yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. And once I got into camp and saw some of the guys and met some other people, I think that's Andy Herlovsky came with me too from Fresno.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the two of us both kind of decided on that, and that's how it went.
How did having Marty as a coach, having his experience, help you develop as a player? And then how did it also help you develop a little bit as a coach?
Yeah, Marty was great at the, especially for me. He was one of the best like X's and O's guys. Obviously, he's a rock star when he was playing, and has an incredible knowledge of the game and great connection to the guys. So he was. He was really big in my development and giving me a shot too on this team, and embracing the role I played a little bit of being a little dirtier and scrappier and putting me with a few good guys. So no, I learned a ton about the systems and stuff from Marty, and especially coaching now, I learned a ton of lessons from him there too. So I try to pull from all the coaches that I've played for, good things, bad things, all that, and try to obviously create my own my own style and my own recipe for it. And Marty had a huge play in that for sure.
You talk about your time on the ice here in Minot. Is there a specific memory, a game or a goal that you scored or that you were on the ice for? Is there something that sticks out that really kind of is that moment that you remember most about being in Minot?
Yeah, there's one negative I remember was that the game we ended our season on was like a triple overtime against Austin. It was an insanely long game, and I remember everybody from the Tauros staff was like trying to run down pizza from the concession stand, and we were ordering food, and like we played 2 full games, so it was insane. Just they were trying to pump us full of water and food, and obviously didn't end up the way we wanted to and lost in that overtime, but it was that one definitely sticks with me as a great memory. So
at the time, that was actually the longest game in NA history. I think we lost with 3:16 left in the third overtime. So yeah, almost 3 full games. But
yeah, that was insane. Everybody's just absolutely dead, and I mean, yeah, kudos to the Tauros staff on that one, because they were keeping us alive for sure, and making sure we were fed and ready to go.
We have a lot of newer fans here that are starting to follow the Tauros, and heck, even myself. I mean, this is finishing up my first year, so I never got to experience, and a lot of our fans didn't get to experience the Eck rink and playing there. What was the atmosphere like during those games that you experienced from an on-ice position?
Yeah, that rink was definitely a lot of fun. And you talk about games that I remember too. I remember a lot of those Bismarck games where, they were broadcast on TV, and seeing the camera crews and stuff in there. And we really packed that place a lot. And obviously I can't get the sound of cowbells out of my ears when I think about it. So, but yeah, that like old metal and kind of the sides, like it just seemed like the cowbells just were like constantly just banging off the walls there. So no, I loved playing in that area, and that arena was great. And I still want to get up there and see the new one too.
You wore a letter here, and which is I think rare for guys who hadn't been in the organization before. What did it mean to you as a new Toro to be given that responsibility?
Yeah, I mean it's an honor, obviously, to be picked as a part of the leadership group, and I was familiar with wearing a letter a lot of other places, and Tim was a great guy to be our captain, and loved being a part of that group. But yeah, it means a lot for sure, and especially as a second year guy, we had a ton of younger guys that obviously we mentioned, like Johnny Walker coming on before me, but he was like what, 15 or
16,
14,
yeah.
Like right, yeah.
He looked like he was 12, but yeah. super young buck, right? But so we had a lot of those young guys on the team that year, and it meant a lot that Marty and the staff
had chosen that, guys like me and Jake and Tim would be on that leadership group to kind of guide the way as second-year players. So
You mentioned wearing a letter both here in Minot and in Fresno. How did having those letters and kind of getting handed a leadership role lead to having some experience where you're now the VP of the Rampage? How did that help out some?
Yeah, I mean it adds up, Aaron. That's a lot with what we do, for the players we have. And I head coach the U16 team, and I'm assistant coach on the U18, and then obviously run that part of the program. But it's all those leadership skills come into play, and we have 600 kids, 700 kids here that are all looking at us as coaches as leaders and role models. And just like I had looked up to Marty and Coach Ballard in Fresno and those guys. And, it definitely gave me a lot of those tools to be able to communicate well, be able to lead by example. I'm not walking in here with, a Coke and, baggy sweats and all that. Like I'm here to be a professional. I hope the kids see that and hopefully see how I am on the ice and how I communicate with people, that they'll pick up on those life lessons and take that into, obviously with our goal in mind is we're trying to move guys to the junior hockey and play in the North American League and the USHL and see guys become D1 commits. So, I just try to lead by example and be a guy who's got some of that experience to give those guys an insight on how to get there and how to do it the right way.
You mentioned your captain while you were here was Tim Donahue. How much do you keep in touch with former Tauros, guys you were teammates with for your year here?
Yeah, pretty well, actually. Like I said, that's one of the biggest things is those relationships from Minot have really they've lasted over all time, and no matter where guys are and where they go, is we all stay in touch. I hear, if Jaden Martin goes and shoots a cougar somewhere in Idaho, right, he's sending me the pictures right away and showing me all that stuff. And the Tim I actually saw in Blaine actually this last February. That's where our playoffs are, at that Blaine Schwann rink. So I actually got to have lunch with Tim and catch up with him a little bit. So yeah, it's nice to touch base with those guys and see what they're doing. And we're always trying to plan something. Stay Skull, obviously I went to school with him for a couple of years at UW Stout. So, he's a guy I touch base with here and there. And whenever they see, a funny memory or something that reminds us of that something, he'll text it or send it out. And so we stay in contact that way.
And how about your billets? Have you kept in touch with your billets at all?
I have, for sure. Yeah. Tim and Jody, shout out to you guys. Obviously love you guys and loved living there. Had a great experience. So it's tough on my side. We have a lot of kids who travel from other places to come play here and want to play in the Tier 1 Elite League and play at U18, U16, AAA. So, I'm in meetings weekly with our billet coordinators and our billet families. And, now on the ops side, you see how crucial like good billets are and having a good home for these kids who are, they're new to moving away from home, or they're, scared to leave the house and now they're living in a whole new environment and a whole new place. So, the billet families are a huge part of our success for sure as a program. So I definitely respect, Tim and Jody and all the things they did for me and made sure that I was, I felt comfortable and had a safe place to live.
Do you feel like having that experience, having lived at a billet, helps you a little bit with some, especially, at least junior guys? A lot of these guys are 18, 19 when they're leaving home. You're dealing with kids who are leaving home at 15, 16. Has that helped you a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely different for a kid who's, 18, 19 and going to move away. They're a little more independent and can kind of handle it that way. And it's definitely tougher for a 15, 16-year-old to, go into a new family. So the way we vet our families and really make sure it's a good, positive home. And most of them are families who have kids already in the program, maybe a squirt or a peewee that's, a little guy and they want a big brother. And it helps too. I mean, Air Force Academy is a mile down the road from us here. So the cadets have host families as well. Most freshman cadets and stuff like that, they can go off base meet a family. So billeting's not too new to the people here in Monument and Colorado Springs. So it helps us find really good families and make sure that, some of the things I knew as a billet that made me more comfortable and the food I was eating and things like that, we can help our billets develop and make sure they have a good home for their kids.
Your coaching career is just started and it's still young, but is there any specific memory from a practice or a game that sticks out to you, and it's your quote unquote favorite memory, or just a memory that you're going to remember your entire coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, so far, biggest one that stands out to me is, our trip to nationals last year with or 2 years ago with our 18U team. We had one of the top teams in the country, and it's a thrill ride all the way. And that was my first year coaching at the U18 level. And it was an awesome thing to see, especially as my team, when I played for the Rampage at U18, we had lost in a district championship, never got to go to nationals, and kind of had that sour memory in my mind. So watching this group of guys move on and go to nationals that year was incredible. And now watching those guys, you guys see them now. None of them are Tauros, but one of them's at Aberdeen, Cosentino. Two guys from that team. We got Peter Jacobs, and he's at Austin, so you guys see them all the time. We got a couple more kids in Amarillo, kid in Fairbanks. So I mean, it's fun to now see that group moving on and now playing in the North American League. Two of those guys have committed to Air Force already to go play D1. So that's my favorite part, is watching those guys move on, and that's the stuff that really sticks with me as a coach, is seeing them succeed and continue to play hockey at a high level.
For you as a coach, is it more stressful? I found for me as a broadcaster, I get more stressed out during a game, calling a game, than I ever did as a player. I think it's that lack of control. I felt like if I was playing, I could at least have some kind of control on the outcome. As a coach, have you found is it different for you being behind the bench versus on the ice?
100%. And I'm working on it. I'm working on it every year, getting a little bit better. But I mean, my temper is pretty bad on the ice for sure. So me as a player, I could easily just jump out the next shift and go fight somebody and be like, calm it down. But now, sitting behind the bench and watching it, and obviously the way the game's changed, and it's a lot more speed and skill, and some of that toughness and grit isn't quite there anymore. So I'm always kind of like gripping it a little tight, trying to keep my mouth shut and not freak out too much. But yeah, I definitely have an even keel on the bench now, and I'll lose it from time to time. But it's so hard, and it really turns our stomachs as coaches to, when we do lose and when we win, and we go through that roller coaster of emotions for sure. And I think a lot of it's because I really don't have any control over it. It's, we give the guys the tools to succeed, and then when it comes to game time, I mean, you're not changing much. Maybe there's a few strategy things here or there, but really it's either they're prepared or they're not, and it's going to be it's their fate in the end of the day. So
have you talked to any of the previous coaches, whether it's Marty or your college coach that you had, about any advice or any situations that you've been in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm trying to be a sponge. I'm young in it. And, like I said, I call on a lot of those old experiences, but I'm definitely reaching out. I know when Marty was at Minot, I was always reaching out about, hey, you got to watch this guy, you got to talk to them, or this and that. But no, I try to pull on those coaches for as much advice as possible. And anything I can do to learn and continue growing myself is, something I'm trying to do every day. And that goes even back to me trying to lead by example, is showing these guys that, are playing for me, is like, look, I'm trying to get better every day as well. And, that's our goal. And that's kind of our motto here, is better today than yesterday. And that's something we live by here at the program. So I'm trying to do the same as a coach. And I actually ran into Nigel. He came down from Lloydminster and was scouting in St. Louis this last season. So I got to touch base with him again and see how his teams were doing. And we shared a lot of stuff back and forth about, about that whole situation. So yeah, I'm trying to all the time and learn from any of those guys.
We had some people chiming in on Facebook. One of them is Chris Gillespie. He says, "Hope Shippy has a good interview, or I'm going to have Tyler chirp him at the rink tomorrow. Shippy has done awesome with the MHA summer school." He also tweeted us a question earlier, and Chris did, and he said, "Shippy, how do you enjoy coaching an old-time Tauros super fan, Tyler and Bentley?"
Yeah, that one's kind of funny story too. I jumped out. We do kind of a for most of our younger tier 2 kids, it's anywhere between the ages of 8 and 13, 14. We do like a hockey power skating class every Saturday, and we call it edge class, right? So I popped out there one morning and was just kind of running practice normally. I mean, there's maybe 50 kids on the ice for these things, so there's just a bunch of little guys buzzing around, and one of them had a Tauros player of the game sticker on his helmet. I was like, had to double take because like, you're from Minot? Like, I had to kind of pull the kid inside and like, that's Minot, right? Like, you don't see it. And I mean, you don't see Colorado Springs and this area. Nobody really knows about the North American League, right? Or some of these teams. So it kind of threw me for a loop. And yeah, so they've been awesome. And our MHA summer school is so that's the hockey academy here, is Monument Hockey Academy. So we're running a summer school program right now that's really for the those elite-minded players who they're on the ice 3 times a week. They skate 5 times a week. We do video, we do nutrition stuff, we do all of that. And it really is kind of the top of the top training experience. So no, it's been great to have those guys in the MHA side and get to know the Gillespies a little bit.
You mentioned you're coaching the U18 and the U16 as the head coach, U18 as an assistant coach, and that's in the Tier 1 Elite League, which is a big feeder. You mentioned the Constantino kid in Aberdeen, the Jacobs in Austin. Who should we be looking for to become a Toro here in the near future?
Well, hopefully a few. We got a lot of young studs. We typically move like 5 or 6 guys to the North American League every birth year, and it kind of works out the same way. We'll get about 6 Division I commits at every birth year. So yeah, that alumni group is something we're really proud of. And Ty Black was one of those guys. He tendered, I believe, last year with Minot. Just kind of didn't work out and needed a new situation, so he went down to Amarillo and kind of started tearing it up there. So, I mean, Marty and he had called me too and let me know that, oh man, I'm going to let Ty go. We're going to trade him. And, I was like, yeah, I 100% agree. It's a business and he's not performing and this is what we do. And Ty came back to Colorado to train for a little bit before he had to go to Amarillo. And we sat down and kind of worked on some of those things in his game. And yeah, he's thriving in Amarillo. So, no, I hope to. I still see Lonky on the road every once in a while, and he's out scouting, and he's always coming up to us and asking for Rampage guys. So yeah, the connection's still there. I hope to see another Rampage alum in a Tauros uniform.
You mentioned Tim and Jody earlier as your billets, but is there anybody else that you want to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll just anybody, all the billets. Just every billet family, all the staff, everybody there, the rink staff. I worked at the rink while I was playing there and sweeping locker rooms every morning and sharpening skates and doing all that stuff. So everybody there at the Mesa, I give a huge shout out to them. And just appreciative of all the fans, all the families. It really made my experience awesome, all the fans. And it just, I can't say thanks enough to everybody there.
All right, Shippy, it's great to hear from you. We'll keep in touch. I mentioned before we jumped on, I'm trying to put together an alumni game, so definitely get a hold of you for that. And hopefully we see you here in the not-so-distant future.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Tyler.
Once again, that's Tauros alum Tyler Shipstad, who was here for the 2013-14 season, and really just awesome to catch up with him and hear that he's doing great things and still in the game.
Yeah, it's cool. We've had 2 former Tauros alum who are still playing, but it's also interesting to see the backside, now the operations side of how Minot can really help players not just develop as a player, but also as workers and leaders and all that too.
For sure, and it definitely is cool to hear that guys are still in the game and pushing, the lessons that they learned here are being passed on to future generations of hockey players.
Exactly. So that's all we got for today. For Sean Bachhoven behind the scenes.
The Grantley Johnson.
Oh yes, the
Jersey
Grantley
auction.
Johnson Memorial Jersey auction is still going on. It ends a week from Friday. So make sure you get out there.
Jump on Dash. All the proceeds from that will go to help Grantley's family with the medical expenses. So please jump on, get your favorite Tauros warm-up jersey, those orange Grantley jerseys that we wore for the game against Aberdeen as well. So be sure to bid on those. Hopefully we can help raise some money for Grantley's family.
Yeah, so that's all we got for today. For Sean Bachhoven behind the scenes, that's Ken Oda. I'm Peter Theodos. We'll see you next week.